everybody. Welcome to Shadoe at Night. It's Wednesday, July the 10th, 2024. On the show tonight from What's Up Canada, Wayne Peters. It's been quite a while, I think since last Christmas when we had a great big round table of nearly all of the independent media from coast to coast, and Wayne was on that for, I think, the duration. He's been doing his What's Up Canada on Rumble 5 nights a week, 6 o'clock Central, and also a daily Substack. We're going to talk to Wayne more about that. And because I asked Wayne earlier this morning, hey, you want to come on tonight? It's been a while since we've had a conversation. He said yes. I watched a couple of Wayne's episodes, and it's, first of all, I hadn't seen him do an episode in a while, so it was good to see. And everything he's saying, you know, we've been kind of following here on the show. Wayne goes much deeper into many things than I do here on this show. This show is pretty much an overview of as many things as I can jam into one show in a night. Wayne tends to take one or two topics on a show and go deep into them, which is a significant difference in the way we handle our shows, but also he is more steeped in the minutia of these stories and the psyops that are currently ongoing all around us. You may not have noticed. I noticed about a month ago that things seemed to be different. There was some kind of feeling in the air I was getting, and Wayne has managed to hammer those things down to some extent. So we're going to talk about that and more. Wayne Peters joins in just a couple of minutes. The Shadoe at Night live stream is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. The Immune Gummies, my favorite on the list of these awesome products on the website here at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Simplify your daily immune support with convenient and delicious Nano Silver Immune Gummies. Each serving contains powerful triple-action Nano Silver, elderberry, vitamin C, zinc, and vitamin D3 to help supercharge your immune system. It is safe. It is proven. Nano Silver, the power of silverceutical technology, works alongside your body's own immune system to help you stay healthy and strong for everything that life throws at you. CanadaNanoSilver.ca, CanadaNanoSilver.ca for retail locations near you, and they're popping up everywhere, all across the country. Go to the Retail Locations tab in the upper right corner of the website, and if you'd like to become a retailer of these awesome products yourself, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Hello to Chuck and Carla and Rhonda, Linda, Debbie, Mimi from Austinfeld, Julie. Julie is watching in London, Ontario. Hello, Lena, Marilyn, Michelle, Karen, JJ. If you guys are watching on Facebook or X tonight, don't forget to repost this, share it, like it, get it out to as many people as possible. If you're watching on Rumble tonight, it's a big thumbs up. Let's get this out there to as many of the 100 million strong Rumble community as we possibly can. I noticed we're broadcasting live tonight on the What's Up Canada YouTube channel and the What's Up Canada X page as well. Wayne, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming back on. It's been a while, my friend. Good to have you back.
It's always an interesting, fun, and diverse conversation when you get to want to know it alls in the same place at the same time, right? No matter what we learn, we always want to know more. So it's always an entertaining opportunity to bump brains and discuss different things in the public square, and everybody gets to see it. You know, that's the cool part. We don't always get contemporaries. We don't always get to bounce that around, and that's why it's always fun when we get a chance to do this kind of stuff.
Interesting. Somebody commented on my promo post on Facebook this afternoon. So we're going to get that fire hose of information. I said, yeah, probably.
This is your show, Shadoe. So it's wherever you go, I will follow. But the thing about me is it's consistent since day one. Be careful what you ask for, because you will get the raw, unvarnished truth to the best of my knowledge, no matter what, good, bad, or otherwise. So sometimes I tend to shatter some reality.
That's all right, because we all need our reality shattered from time to time. It happened to me a couple of weeks ago. Somebody told me something. I said, no way. And then there it was. I think we just need to be kicked out of our comfort zones every now and again and understand what's going on around us. I mean, you pointed out in one of your most recent shows, which is available at What's Up Canada on Rumble, by the way, in case you guys are not following Wayne, there are 3 concurrent psyops that are happening around us right now. And I was mesmerized by that because I knew of one. And what I had noticed, Wayne, is that the censorship was really starting to clamp down again on most of the social media, even on Rumble and X. I noticed that my posts weren't getting the traction they were getting just 2 months ago, and I thought, there's something up. This is what they did last time.
It's exactly, everything is wash, rinse, repeat. These guys. So I've been around this for a long time, and a lot of people know that. I started out kind of boots on the ground, where a lot of others are, knowing that this space was going to evolve, and in moving, I had a real good opportunity driving across this country, because you have days and days to do that, to really think about what I wanted to do when I got to where I was going. And I hit the ground running with kind of a chapters type of format, loosely chaptered, so that I could do, and you highlighted on this, so I really could get into the minutia of things in an ongoing basis. Uh, for several different reasons, but I think it's really helped me deliver a far more informational, program, and gives me some structure 5 days a week. And it's, for me, and this, Shadow, I'm always looking for something that nobody else is covering, right? It's kind of, I'm always looking for that thing that isn't getting the space that it should. And I've been since I've kind of got this routine and structure going, I've kind of been watching your show and some others after, because I go earlier and I have absolutely no idea what you guys are going to do, but it helps me be a barometer of where I am and all of this. And I think it gives us an opportunity to exactly that. We don't all have to tell the same story, right? We don't all have to cover the same thing, but if we're all still adding valuable information, that's what's important, because we don't know where we're going to meet everybody else, and we can continue to do what we do, build on it, and meet people where they're at when they come to us with different things, and send people to the right place for the right things. There's, to me, it feels like a bit of a disservice when somebody's doing the same interview a dozen times across a dozen platforms. By the time they get to my show, I don't want to make them regurgitate everything that they've said 400 times in the last month. I'd rather send them to Shadow's show, right?
So he can make them regurgitate everything they said
Well,
400
you've
times.
already done it. You've already done it. I don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? I see my role evolving in this media space, and I tend to be ahead of the curve. I watch some of the dichotomies repeating themselves in the alternative media, and I think it's important to establish a baseline. Why are we doing this? We're here to hold truth to account, right? Our power holds truth accountable. And that has to be done from both sides of the spectrum. We have to be able to call out both sides when we find questionable, anything that's questionable or untrue. And I think we, in this space, that where our communities come from, they expect us to be, on board with the team. And I'm wary of that, because we're starting to become what we lost trust in. We don't want to become one-sided and biased and unable to call out everything that needs to be called out sometimes. We can't be here to be friends and family, and everything can't be a warm cup of hot cocoa. So we have to be brave sometimes and challenge the discussions that are happening even in our own side of the space. And none of it is about wanting to be right. Nobody in this space wants to be right. It's about what serves the people the best, and it is the unvarnished truth. So not to be negative on my platform, but to be factual. I've taken extra, an extra level of efforts to make sure that my shows are concise and they can connect the dots, and then I provide receipts every day on the Substack.
Have you, Wayne, have you been messaged by people saying, why are you so negative? You're supposed to be, because I get that quite often myself. Well, I can't say quite often, but when we do hit a very, let's call it a sensitive subject, rather hard on this show, we get a lot of messages from people saying, you're supposed to be positive and you're supposed to really help us get through this. And I suppose that is part of our mandate here, not self-appointed. we are, generally speaking, as well as information providers, we are giving people a comfortable place to gather. But
Well,
there is going to be some not so good news sometimes, right?
Well, and this is the reality of the space where we have to define what we are, and we're getting to that point in the space. I mean, Shadow, you come into this space with a very different perspective than what I did, and although I've been 5 solid years in this, the space has evolved astronomically since we started, and now there are thousands like us out there, and we have to start to think for ourselves. How do we want to define ourselves in this space as noise, entertainment, educational, or news, and getting back to restoring the faith in our own news starts with us, and we have to take that as a responsibility, and it's not easy. And you're right, I do get a lot of pushback, but at the end of the day, um, I was also worked in fire and rescue for a lot of years, and in trauma you don't have all the time to be nice. Sometimes you got to pull the band-aid off before you can fix stuff, and we're really running out of time. And you hit on this with the censorship stuff. This is one of the things that's driving me now with my 5-day-a-week program. Is honestly, our runway is getting short. The reason I'm doing this primarily and investing on Substack and YouTube or Rumble, pardon me, is because literally our government has forced Facebook to demand I provide a recognized accreditation and who my staff are, and provide evidence of all of this to Facebook before they will let me stream on the What's Up Canada platform on Facebook anymore. So
What? I
yeah.
haven't heard of that yet. That's crazy talk. I mean, they're stifling my page, but I haven't been asked for accreditation yet. Where are you supposed to go for that? What is that? BS.
Right? I mean, this is, honestly, I got to that page of the process, Shadow, and I was so infuriated. It's a good thing that there was no public recording devices around, because my language was pretty extremely graphic. And I promised, that at that point in time, GFY Facebook, I will build and reconvene our community elsewhere. So hence the a number of things. We have, if we're lucky, a year. If we look at from the time they passed C11 to the implementation, C18 to the implementation, we're running out of runway, and sooner or later they come for us. And so if we are not prepared elsewhere and established elsewhere, we will absolutely lose our ability to communicate the most critical information to the communities that are out there. So this is basically what's driving the change, the alterations. Until there is something new, we have to build it.
Have you mentioned to me that you had a few shows preempted or taken down altogether off Rumble too, right?
Well, that's been kind of weird, where 3 times in the last month people have tried to, everything is exactly the same. But I think I actually discovered it tonight, where one of my earlier channels on Rumble, I deleted it a long time ago, but 3 times in the last month they've kicked it over to that channel, and nobody finds my show. So tonight was again one of those things tonight. And unless people are hardcore and go looking for it or are well established, they didn't find it. So instead of hundreds of viewers, I was down to like double digits. And sometimes I wonder if this is intentional due to the nature of the shows. Is there AI working real time?
Yes. Yes,
So
of course there is.
when I bring on somebody like Jim Ferguson of Freedom International, who was instrumental in helping Nigel Farage do what he did in the UK last week, and has been collectively organizing Europe against the cabal, and I finally get him to have enough time to come on for a one-on-one tonight, guess what?
You get kicked to the... Yeah, that happened to me twice in the last couple of weeks, too. People were saying, where's your show on Rumble? I said, well, it's there. I'm broadcasting it. But it did get kicked to my main profile page, which has significantly less followers.
Yep.
And I didn't do that. So, yeah, of course AI is working in real time. However, AI only works how it's supposed to work according to the programmer, right? So,
Right.
what we've got with Rumble, you would think, is a free speech platform. They would program their AI to be more of a free speech tool than Facebook or YouTube or any of the others. Even X. Have you noticed on X suppression
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
Yeah, it's one of the harbingers of things to come. These three psyops you were talking about in one of your most previous show or one of your most recent shows. What are they? Are they working concurrently right now? Are they all from the same source?
Oh, they're all working concurrently, and this is what I wanted people to kind of start to think about and put it into perspective. Not all psyops are singular events. Like we can all attribute, specific or certain events that change history, whatever the case might be, to being a specific psyop. Some of them are generational, right? And this is where we have to understand the level of the infiltration and how it's being engaged right now. Sleepers, sleeper agents, all of these things, they really genuinely exist. And when we look at even over a period of 5 or 10 years, that can change a nation from one extreme to the other. That isn't done by accident. It is done through manipulation. It is done through, in the case of tyrannical governments, it's done through a symbiotic relationship of censorship and propaganda. One does not work without the other. So the more desperate they are to program us with their narrative, they also must escalate on the censorship, right? So here we have that being one of those things. Whenever they implement a new bill for censorship, you can guarantee that there is going to be an escalation of the propaganda, the gaslighting, the astroturfing, which what we're not necessarily seeing, but influences all of these meat muppets, these pseudo representatives in government. The echo chambers that they're in, the Kool-Aid that they're drinking, is the one that dictates their reactions. They're not getting anything that we're saying. And this is kind of some of the stuff that I've been trying to really dig into and highlight and break down the science and the explanation of, last night's show being one of them. We've got an escalation in the buzzard bug narrative, manufacturing a foundation in the mercenary media to bring that up exactly. At the same time, they're escalating the narrative on us. We're not just racist anymore if we don't want to take part in these bioweapons experiments. Now we're hostile. And that's kind of terminology is exactly how they escalate, right? As part of, again, a psychological operation. All of this isn't exactly by definition how the word originated. It's a military term used for gathering and preparing psychological operations against the enemy. But where we're at now is having to understand that we are the enemy as our government sees us, right? And so the better we get as analysts and sharing to people, the less effective it is. These things fail, like the monkeypox, So when we're able to dissect them and take the traps out of them, and that's what, last night, part of one third of the show was about removing ourselves from the trap. People out there genuinely have a right to be hostile about what these things have done. But if we don't explain the origin of that hostility, they will use that word to arbitrarily round us up when they feel compelled to engage the next operation, right? So this is where I want people to don't just I understand and completely agree if that's how you identify yourself. And I'd really like to run that poll again that initiated this. And I want people to also understand this isn't me trying to escalate things. I'm seeing this happening real time in the mainstream media. So I didn't come up with this word and this term. I wanted to see what they're doing this for. And I see 74% of the people would fall into that trap right now. Right. And this is the kind of stuff that gives them power. So that was one facet of, but that's a short term one. These are very Hegelian dialect, problem reaction solution, where, in one of the other shows last week, we dug into the PAR program, which is the expanded model that the government actually uses by white paper. And that's the kind of stuff that I dig into deeper, that, on my shows the last month. So yeah, there's some fire hoses in there to drink from, folks.
You talked extensively about Bill C-63, and even in our brief text exchange in the last few days, C-63, that was something you brought up. You rarely talk about Canadian bills, Canadian laws, because what I've always gleaned from you is that this is a global thing that is going on. It's not just a Canadian thing, but I thought, Wayne's talking about a Canadian thing here, so that must be something that's the end game. C-63.
It's another tool. It's another weapon.
But
right?
This is the weapon, right? If you're talking about hammers, you've got the little hammer, C-11, C-18 comes out. It's a slightly bigger one. This one is like...
This is a direct. So Bill C-63, we have to understand, is the Canadian interpretation and rewrapping of the Online Harms Act, which is the direct implementation of what they spoke to in January in Davos about two things: rebuilding trust and tackling misinformation and disinformation. So anything that they deem inappropriate now becomes misinformation, and disinformation is the threat. So we're regardless of the branding and the wording that they're using, this is what they're doing. And they always come for the ideology, the rules come from these unelected foreign entities in Geneva and New York and Davos, and gets delivered to our infiltrated cabinet, and they kick it down and make it law. And with this coalition of infiltrated leadership, there is no reasonable expectation that they will ever defeat these bills. And here's where the problem comes into one of the deeper psyops that I covered last night. And this is going to make me hugely unpopular, as we all understand to an extent that left wing, right wing, same sick bird. We use the words controlled opposition, all of these different things, and we have reasons to question at different times these, opposing candidates and what their motivation, because none of it seems to make sense. But we have to look deeper into some of these deceptions, and as unfortunate as it is, when we are fighting these kinds of bills, we look at Bill C-63. We recognize that as a globalist bill, but we also have to understand that this is one of the cornerstones of the 17 parts of the UN SDA, the Paris Agreement. These are we're familiar with that being the globalism, that being these traitorous, treasonous acts. But the biggest deception of all is that the Conservative Party, to a majority, is also signed on to fulfill exactly these obligations. And when Mr. Polyev is questioned, will he undo the party's signatures? Will he unring that bell? He says no. So um, unfortunately, I cannot trust this guy that is signed on the dotted line of Geneva and Davos policies, and pretend like this guy's going to save us when he gets into office. And this is the problem in Canada. We are so desperate for hope, and he says the right things, but at the end of the day, some of the most diabolical of them all are the most devious behind them. And another one, another psyop that I covered last night was another guy that actually kind of surprised me, and I wouldn't have even been watching him, Shadoe, unless I had started to look at that list of Conservative members that signed on to this unholy alliance with Geneva, Switzerland. And Mr. Genius, who I've now discovered is not so genius, or he's only genius in name, is trying to deceive us into literally passing Bill C-388 to expand the mining corporations in Canada to directly create weapons and munitions for Ukraine.
That's
Well, this
Garnet
is our
Genius of the Conservative Party you're talking about. That is the
correct.
MP. Okay.
Correct. So
Wow.
who is really representing Canadians? We don't want mines so that we can build artillery shells for Ukraine and a public-private partnership passed as law. This is a Conservative Party?
Yeah, it's interesting. You
Great.
know, this article that I've got pulled up here with Polyev waving his hat, Calgary Stampede, it comes from the Calgary Herald. And Polyev seems to be getting bolder and bolder with his rhetoric regarding the fact that Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau are both extremists. He uses the term wacko, obviously, because he's, I think, trademarked that. But he is calling them extremist. He is calling them, he's come this close, and he's said it privately, but not publicly yet, radical Marxists. And he calls himself the centrist candidate. He has not yet condemned the war in Ukraine. None of the Conservative Party have, as a matter of fact. They're still standing up. We will always stand with Ukraine, and that boggles my mind. But the other thing is this mass immigration. Polyev refuses to address that either through political expediency or the fact that maybe he believes that we need 500,000 immigrants flowing into this country every year, not to mention the temporary workers and students that come in and the refugees, putting us well over 1 million. Our population just topped out at 41 million a couple of weeks ago. What are your thoughts on Polyev not addressing these two huge issues?
He can't. That's my point of the Paris Accord and the Migration Compact, because he's contractually obligated to fulfill the same attaboy list as every other member that signed on to these unholy alliances. So he will talk about different things that will get him elected, and after 1992, there is zero recourse after any of them are elected. So you know, it's not just to say that everything he is saying is a lie. He has the ability to do some of these things, but some of them his party is equally obligated to fulfill the mandates that they have signed on to fulfill. So this is why the deception is, rather than supporting. Just as a couple of examples, rather than supporting removing all of the heinous crimes against Canadians through the beer bug adventures, and reinstating and restoring faith between our doctors and our nurses and our medical system and the people that worked in it. No, cut them loose, let them go. Let's lobby for more importation of skilled laborers to fill those jobs. This is exactly my point. They make a really good story. They tell a real good story, just like another one that I brought up. And this is I've been doing this over the course of the last few weeks too, is introducing people to the greater population, and also introducing their crimes and their deceptions. And people like Michelle Rempel, that knew after 13 or 14 years of administration in the Winnipeg biolabs to never ask any question of relevance when it came to actually the science behind any of these concoctions that they created. No, but she was really good at lobbying Trudeau to make sure that why aren't people getting these things fast enough? These are the people that claim to represent us, but yet they're only the ones that are smart enough to know what not to say and what not to do.
So where does that leave us? I mean, you talked earlier about a very short runway, and I think every time you've been on, you've talked about a short runway, and I believe that you're right about that. But what is next? What is my prediction has been that once they have this bird flu summit in Washington at the beginning of October, then 6 months later, we're going to see a bird flu pandemic, but they're not going to call it bird flu. They can't call it bird flu because people aren't scared enough of it. The same thing with monkeypox, right? COVID was a marketing manufactured name. They knew what they were going to call that virus well before they released it, well before they declared a pandemic. That's my opinion. That's not fact. I think go ahead.
This time they're not going to come at us to get the jab. They're going to take away the food supply. They know they're not going to get us jabbed again. So they're going to take away the chickens instead. And then,
Well, then the beef, because it jumps to the cows, right?
Well, they will provide whatever pseudoscience under Mr. Gates that is required to fulfill that. And while we are running around trying to put out all of the rest of the fires, who's going to actually get coordinated enough to stop these monsters? And they've already got the next solution where they're not worried about getting us poked anymore, because if they introduce whatever they want into the food supply, which they will control, then hesitancy is no longer a concern. And that's right from Mr. Gates's lips. So it's just a matter of them juggling the fireballs until they get to the gold nuggets that they want, and to keep us dancing through all of these psyops and this psychological abuse and trauma that they're putting the unsuspecting and innocent populations through. All the people want is a path to safety and security. That's it. And they're continuously being bombarded with the next thing without a moment of breath in between, and one pseudo representative or the other. The reason I say that we're running out of runway is because we are still incredibly fractured when we need to become the most unified, and in action, not in mindset, not in agreements. But if we don't start, uh, you know, we're running out of the runway to speak.
Yeah.
Once we can no longer speak, Shadow, how much resistance is there?
Well, there's nothing. I mean, we could stand on our balconies in our 700 square foot or 500 square foot
With the
apartment
ankle
units.
bracelet on because we thought about saying something, and we have $24 million in fines to pay for things that we did say over the course of the last number of years, and we will never see the light of day. That's the reality check of what Bill C-63 is. So if we don't get it all out now and get through some of the nonsense and the noise to some of the things that matter, then we're not going to be in a position to take advantage of the opportunity that is this year.
So we're seeing a lot of resistance from people across Europe in these elections, except for the fact that I think the lefties cheated in the European and France elections this past
Absolutely.
weekend by giving people a binary choice, and some parties took themselves off the ballot. But now what they've got over there is a communist coalition, and they want the premiership. So good luck with that.
They've got exactly what we've had in Canada for the last 7 years since Trudeau lost the majority, and they merged in with Jagmeet's party, and Trudeau became the first NDP prime minister in the history of Canada.
Sidebar: do you think that the Liberals and the NDP are going to merge?
Aren't they? Haven't they?
No, I mean like completely, and call themselves the LNDP or something. I mean like a brand new party.
No, I don't think so. I think they've realized the jig is up. The Praetorian Guard is sharpening its teeth when Chrystia Freeland is offering her property, her facility, to John McKay, the leader of the
Dissidents.
the dissidents, the insurrectionists within the party, the sedition party, as the National Post named it, being led by John McKay. And Christian says, "Oh, I just gave them a yard to use. You don't think?"
Right. Well, let me correct you on that. I didn't call the meeting. I just
Right.
gave them the space.
Right?
Because it was a central location. That's what she said. She actually had the nerve to say that on one of those Sunday talk shows. So Europe has shown that people are getting tired of all of this nonsense. I believe that people know something is going on, and they're using their power of the vote to try and get rid of it. Not all of them. Not all of them, but I believe many of them are. I think the same thing is probably on track to happen in the United States. Donald Trump will come to power no matter who the Democratic nominee is, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Kamala Harris, whether it's Hillary Clinton, or whether it's Big Mike. I don't care who it is. I think Donald Trump wins. But you and I have had a conversation about this in the past. When I asked you, why didn't Trump just say that the vaccines were experimental and you shouldn't have to take them? And you told me he couldn't say that. He couldn't say that, or else the party and the power brokers behind it would have fired him. Do you think that this time, and they would have actually taken him out of office somehow, some way?
Do
Do you
you?
think do you think that he's going to have a different outlook this time around, that he's more fortified in a second term?
I think that there's a lot going on. Uh, we're
Yeah.
there's so I had a great chat, as I mentioned, with Jim Ferguson. He's been uniting Europe, and we're seeing things shift astronomically quickly. They're like, I mean, over by the day by day. Viktor Orban and their new Patriot alliance in Europe is exploding by quantums over there in Europe, as people are finally getting brave enough to follow some basic, just narrowing it down to 3 or 4 basic points that we are all suffering. And in Europe, they're what they're staring down the barrel of, that they're incredibly familiar with, is being led into an all-consuming, all-destructive conflict across the entire continental Europe, potentially globally, being led by foolish, irresponsible American oligarchs that have facilitated literally these soft coups of our countries through these public-private partnerships and NGOs and nonprofits through the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. So here's a big point that I want to make out of all of this. Within the last 2 days, the European Union, under the leadership of another German, has told the country of Georgia that they need to replace their government, because it's unacceptable that the people of Georgia, who voted overwhelmingly to remove nonprofits and lobbyist groups from the country that were foreign money. So they said, no more foreign lobbying in our government. The EU threatens to kick them out. Viktor Orban, meeting with the leader of Turkey to try to facilitate peace between Russia and Ukraine, is now being threatened for doing so by same said German in the EU. So the general population of Europe is going, this is ugly. This is dangerous. We don't want none of this. It's time to backpedal hard and fast. So that is, in essence, the foundation of why this backpedaling and this change. So this has left the globalists, as I've been predicting for a year, when Jacob Rothschild himself said, if they lose that conflict, the new world global rules-based international order is over, dead and done. So this is what they are all realizing on the hard left, and they are scrambling very, very hard to try and save a couple of their flagships. They know they're going to lose a lot, but they cannot lose everything, their all, that they've invested hundreds of years and generations into. So they're going to struggle very hard, if they can, to try and save Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. France is basically being torpedoed because of the petrodollar. And this is where we run out of time, where these guys, looking back through history, guys, whenever they lose control, they escalate war. They make a bigger war. They make a bigger war. So they are trying really hard to maintain control while they are losing it across the entire international rules-based order. So they believe in Mr. Trudeau trying to do what he has done. He's gotten so far, but at the end of the day, Christia's still the leader. She's the one that wears the pants in that room full of globalists and disciples of Klaus. She is the puppet master between, and she's preparing for the same thing as the U.S. Political sacrifice. I've been using that term a lot for the last 6 months. We have entered the season of the sacrificial political lamb. And boy, isn't it exciting. Every single day there is another one. And as they expose themselves in their desperation to try and extract as much as they can out of it, some of them show their faces, like Garnet did yesterday too. So from all sides, they are showing their true colors in what they actually represent. So it's time to pull an Iceland.
Just get rid of everything and rebuild it right from the ground up, huh?
No,
that's
not
what we're
really.
going to do. No,
Not-
okay.
not really.
You did tell me about Iceland a couple of years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to repeat for me and for some of the viewers that don't remember?
It's unfortunate that this conversation and this knowledge has been so seriously destroyed in Canada. And this is another one of those psyops that they've been working on us for a couple of decades. To put this into in the same context so people understand this, they'll tell us that we're having a productivity crisis. We're losing productivity. We don't have skilled labor anymore. Meanwhile, they have completely captured the education system that is supposed to generate skilled labor, and we have no labor force for people highly educated in 72 genders. We don't have any of that, right? So that's one of those long-term investment psyops: capture the education system, destroy the infrastructure and the economy because they can't, and now they can justify mass migration as a necessity. There's all different kinds of things like that, but there's with this one understanding that what Iceland did was pretty basic. They didn't follow through on it, but by literally using the internationally recognized process, not the muddied down, well tainted discussion that most of these pseudo groups in Canada. Unfortunately, there are dozens and dozens of these people out there that have destroyed the actual articulation of the discussion. Using the internationally recognized process, the same as the US did when they established what form of government they wanted to have. They decided on a constitutional republic, which was a rule of law nation. Iceland invoked the same process, which means as soon as they trigger, same process, we have the right to do this here in Canada. As soon as they trigger legitimate constitutional conventions, everything stops. The government no longer ceases to have power. They are to implement a transition team while the recognized and accountable process takes place. And then whether there's profits or debt to the criminals, that goes with the criminals. So the trillions of dollars of debt that Canada has would go with exactly these same corrupt criminals. So this is the investment that they are protecting so dearly, and they know this. They absolutely know this. I've been in rooms, honestly, with sitting MPs in Ottawa and challenged them on this, and they say, yeah, we know. So what? We rule through implied consent. That is exactly how this whole process. So as soon as we stop consenting to every single thing that they do and invoke that process, then we can actually be true. That's the only free. That's the only real recognized path to freedom that there is, that exists, that would be recognized by the international community. We would get an entirely different response from the UN, the World Economic Forum, and the International Court of Justices. Boy, would they all of a sudden look at Canada incredibly differently, because right now they look at Canada and go, yeah, so what? So long as the people continue to accept an implied consent, Trudeau can stack up the crimes, and there's nothing that they can really do about it because it takes them more than 10 years to bring a single charge to bear. So we're on our own on this, folks. So until we decide to put away the petty nonsense, the soap operas, the drama, and get to some things that matter.
When you talk about the petty nonsense and the soap operas and the drama, are you talking about the different fighting that's going on within the freedom groups, or are you talking about something else?
He said, she says are never going to set our country free.
No, I agree with that.
Keeping it simple, and that's just me.
What is the process to achieving this Iceland solution here that you've been talking about? I think that we're probably going to have a massive marketing campaign all across the country to get people to understand exactly the situation we're in and the situation we could be in if we started to take notice and participate in it, first of all. And secondly, I believe we need to get some independent MPs in there, enough to actually invoke this, right?
Well, this is where it's so critical. This is the year. almost half of the population is going to decide how their government is going to go for the next number of years. So once they're in office, they don't care what we say, think, or do. So right now, we have to demand specific, more detailed, articulated. The micro matters now more than ever, word by word. Every word matters. This is where where we're seeing victories in the courts right now. It's simply because of using the correct terminology in the correct jurisdiction, right? This is how they're having those victories. So we need to understand that when we're making these arguments and moving forward and holding these guys to account. First and foremost, if we're going to have a marketing campaign, we need to be marketing to get every single elected official to explain why they signed onto the Paris Agreement. And if they regret that, now is the time to repent and work with us to remove that chain of foreign meddling and influence, which, if they don't, then they're basically agreeing to fulfill treason against us. So that is a point that is legitimate. Nobody can deny it. There's a whole bunch of them under Andrew Scheer as the leader at that time in June of 2017 when they signed on to this treasonous document. That is a place to start, and this is how we get them to move. We cannot be angry and violent. We offer them opportunity because now we know, right? Now we know. And that's going to open the door for that relationship for us. We need to create the voting blocks at the municipal level, at every single level, and hold short, concise, undeniable arguments to these people now, before they're elected, while their noses are in the political winds. That's a big part of this. That's where we campaign. But what we need to do is educate, Shadoe. We have 90 years of stolen education. There's a reason they took civics out of our schools. There's a reason they didn't want us understanding all of that. And we've got 90 years to make up for in speed learning. And I'm really happy to see, because this is the interesting part. We're not all as uneducated about this as what we realize. Quebec exists as Quebec is the difference between our countries simply because of using that as extortion over the syndicate in Ottawa. So they know.
Mhm.
They
The
know.
syndicate.
And when they see this Titanic, called formerly known as Canada, sinking, they're going, no, we're going to get our own out of this before this collapses, right? So they came close in 97 to invoking exactly what I'm talking about here now. They called it a referendum then on separation, but it's not. It's not separating, it's claiming. And over that period of decades now, since then, Shadoe, people have become more and more educated into exactly what Iceland did, and what needs to be done. And it is really a pretty simple process. What I'm so excited to see is there's only one place online where I can accurately say whether a person likes the people doing it or accumulating it or not. The research is correct and it's accurate, and people of influence are starting to figure it out and referencing the myth is Canada, because they've got it all laid out there. And it's one of those things that was like Orwell is a playbook for the left. The myth
Yeah.
is Canada is a playbook for freedom. And when we can start to figure out that we need to be building our own freedom at the same time as fighting our own freedom, maybe we can get more people involved.
Dude, have you seen some of the man on the street interviews that have been done by True North and Rebel News over the past couple of months? And I think Western Standard's done some as well. And they're asking basic questions like, would you vote for Trudeau again? Or what do you think about this Palestinian camp that's been set up here? The answers are so alarmingly disappointing. It's deflating when you see the answers. These people go, I don't even know what this is. Trudeau, I think maybe, I don't know. I don't know. It looks like he's getting old. Seriously, these are the kinds of answers that you're getting from Canadian people with the right to vote, with the right to actually make change, and they don't know anything. And if that's the case, how do we do this?
Well, it comes from honestly being brave enough and not afraid to stand up for people that might be able to scream louder, have bigger reach, those kinds of things, and getting more down to the facts and showing results. And I see references in the chat there, to a warrior calls. I like a warrior calls as a person. I like him, but he's got his facts out of order, and that makes him dangerous. And we have to start holding our own people to account when they are. Being irresponsible or the lack of knowledge. We that this falls on us as journalists. If we're going to be a journalist, we have to pull up our big boy pants and do these kinds of things. And when I see so many people in this conservative space, Pierre's our guy, he's a patriot, I get triggered because the truth of it is they are using large audiences to influence an irresponsible and untruthful statement. When somebody has signed away a document that destroys our nation, I cannot go along with calling them a patriot. So it's up to us to decipher and discern, where the truth lies, and put our energy and our resources into people that are brave enough. And unfortunately, I take a shit kicking every time I do this because I shatter people's heroes because they talk a lot of good stuff. And I'm not trying to say they're bad people, but there is so much noise out there, and people are incorrectly leveraging their reach in a time where rage bait and sensationalism, and there is an extreme volume of people that are out here creating a freedom industrial complex.
Yes.
And that is becoming incredibly dangerous, and people are not really necessarily equipped with all of the tools to discern all of that. So I've been spending a lot of time focusing on the deception, the propaganda, the manipulation, that kind of thing, through different snippets, and trying to educate people with current examples of some of this is going on. And I don't want so here's the challenge as a journalist. I'm supposed to be a fair and unbiased, which I am, in the sense that everybody has the right to say and do what they feel is in their best interest. That is freedom. But it is not my role as a journalist to let them skate or to not call them out and call myself a journalist.
Yes, I agree with you.
So
I've had to evolve. No, go ahead, man.
I've had to evolve and really separate from things I'm going to cover, people, stories that I'm going to cover, and things that I'm going to say and do and get involved with. I'm not an activist. I have no choice to leave that behind, because the only way I can protect the people is to identify when those things happen, and to let them know that, look, guys, not everything is as it appears, and I don't want to call people out by name, but I will call out the things that they are doing and let people, so that people can recognize it.
I think it's also incumbent upon us as independent journalists to try and peel back the onion somewhat, not necessarily on facts and what's really going on out there, which is obviously necessary, but also on perceptions. So we notice that we've given special deference to medical professionals through our lives, right? He's a doctor. You have to listen to him, dear. My mother used to say things like that. Or he's a teacher, or she's a nurse. You have to listen to them. You have to absolutely do what they say. And the same goes for politicians. It's kind of a, with politicians, it's either you're an idiot, right? But they'd never say that to their face. If a politician walked into your door, you would go, ooh, welcome, MP. How are things with you? And all of a sudden, you buck up a little bit. You're going to be more polite. You're not going to say the things that you said having a beer with your buddies last night. And what people need to understand is that these people, these MPs or MPPs or MLAs or councillors, they are just people. And they drink, and they go to the bathroom, and they have foibles, and they have insecurities, and they also have different levels of knowledge about what it is that's going on in the world. I had Melissa Outwater on the show a couple of weeks ago. Melissa is the author of the new petition. I think it's C5024.
I was chatting with her at an event last weekend, yeah.
She's great. And, she said, I was talking to an MP. She was in Ottawa doing a press conference regarding the petition a couple of weeks ago, and she was having a chat with an MP. I'm not going to name the MP. And the MP took her aside and said, Melissa, can you do me a favor? Sure. Can you tell me what diagolon is? Because Trudeau has been trying to use this diagolon thing to tie to Polyev to make him appear to be a right-wing knuckle-dragging extremist, tie him to Trump in some way. But this MP had no clue as to what this actually was. And she had he had no idea what was going on beneath the surface of everything that we've experienced since the convoy, the past 2.5 years. And I thought, oh my God, how can these people not know this stuff? It was amazing to me that if this MP didn't know that, what else don't they know? Wouldn't it be great if we could get a bunch of these people, and I know the Liberals are having trouble getting a summer caucus meeting with Trudeau. I don't want it. He does not want to meet with his own people because they're going to force him to resign or at least shuffle his cabinet. But wouldn't it be great if we could get even a dozen elected officials, federally, provincially, whatever, and hold a seminar for them and explain to them what we know about what is going on. Couple of hours, nothing that's going to ruin their entire day, and then let them absorb this information in the rest of their day, no matter what it is they're doing. Do you think that might help if we're able to somehow manage to get some of these politicians together, sit down, and do this presentation for them?
I think it's incumbent on us to be, again, the loudest voices in the room with the most factual data and questions. And here's how I come to the realization that not all of them are evil. You're right. Not every person in politics is evil.
They just don't know. They don't know.
I think that there's actually quite a small number of people that are actually purely and truly evil, and they kind of sit right at the top. But every one of them is bought into silence through getting a little bit of the cut off the top, a little bit of a cut off the top, and a little bit of the cut off the top, and a little bit of the cut off the top. And over decades, we are now at a point in Canada where there is no more percentage for the big guy. There's no more room for big guys at the top. There is no more to cut and shave from everything else. So this is an unsustainable model, and I say that all the time. Insanity is unsustainable, and these people are going to, why would they not? Once they realize, that they're caught in this system, they're not going to turn themselves in on it. And if they are caught in the public eye and haven't repented publicly and said, I didn't know, and preemptively, the public is so angry they'll absolutely crucify them. So they're once these people discover what they're caught into, they're trapped, and they will get out silently to do something else when they have to. But in the meantime, there is a pattern that they have followed. These butts have changed seats for decades and decades and decades, and those little bits off the top have been there for a very, very long time. And it's all coming undone. So this is, like, again, while their noses are in the political winds, we have to get a little bit more unified on what it's going to take before we will grant these people those positions.
Okay, so last question then, going forward, because people are getting antsy right now, and I heard from a viewer this morning, it was kind of a saddening message. She said, I'm just enjoying our last summer as Canadians. And I went, oh my goodness. And so I haven't, she said, been paying as much attention as I normally have for the past couple of years. Lately, we've been having some great seminars across the country. Ken Drysdale had one out here in Manitoba a couple of weeks ago. I was lucky enough to attend. There was a We Unify conference in British Columbia. Essentially, both seminars, both gatherings were delivering the same message to people and then broadcasting it out to them later on. I know that there's smaller ones that are going on all across the country. I know there's a big movement in Nova Scotia for independent candidates for their next election. What is it we need to do to get ourselves out of this? The runway, as you say, is short.
You know, all of us need to think about a couple of things. What we perceive as our existential threats, realizing we've got a lot of problems. We can't fix them all. So let's start talking about what we think might be the top 3 or 5. And this is where we start with think tanks and people that are leading the way, that are established for a very long time, specialists or experts that are leading the way in that, and then come to a mutual level of understanding and knowledge as it pertains to those events. Your guest last night was absolutely phenomenal, and 100% on point. The wheels of justice move very, very slow, but the wheels of the world are moving 24/7, 365 at hyper warp Mach chicken speed right now. It's up to us to slow that down and establish our communities, fortify those things, all of the things that we've been talking about for a long time on the side. This is now where it's going to become critically important. Getting together on actions moving forward, where it's time to start getting away from the 2 minutes of hate, gatherings, events, things that are building. And I'm speaking about this a lot. We're always going to get further with honey than we are with vinegar, right? And I had such a great discussion with Jim about this, specifically this. Although Irish and a warrior, there's a time to fight and a time to be a gardener. And now we need the warriors to run interference on the gardeners, on the ones that are building. So define ourselves first and foremost, which we want to be, and put your effort into groups and organizations that are focusing towards that. One of the like I was saying earlier about the kind of the more chapters style of programs that I'm doing on Monday. My show is called From the Roots, because this is where on Monday I'm gathering all of this stuff that the leaders, I get to sit in so many meetings and think tanks and all of this kinds of stuff with amazing leaders. And what we're seeing on our podcasts isn't necessarily what's being talked about, how we can better things that we can do, initiatives, those kinds of stuff. So to me, that's what Monday is. It's about tools and inspiration. So you go back through a few of those shows. If people want more things that they can do, the Monday shows is where that's where I'm kind of trying to build people and community for the builders, not necessarily the warriors, right? So
what would you say the top 3? You mentioned just a second ago we need to identify the top 3 issues. What would you say they are?
Well, without voice, we've got nothing. First,
censorship,
demanding not just Pierre's said he's going to revoke that. That's giving us that's his nose into the campaign wins, right? What they'll do is the Liberals will revamp it, address it. It's gone too far. We need to demand every single MP and want to be elected in the next election. This has to be a commitment, or we just will not support them. And we need to put this on the record. So that's really the big one. Defunding Ukraine, as much as we need to help find a path to peace in this situation. And honestly, the sooner we stop giving these parasites over there that are destroying that country, the sooner the world will be safer. And that part of that deception of Ukraine is the PSYOP that I broke down last night. There's other trade organizations that are now making deals among 40% of the world's population. We covered that last night. That does not include us. That is going to absolutely demolish our economies, and nobody here in the mainstream media is talking about it. So these are the kinds of things we have to realize that not everything that changes Canada is happening within Canada. It's
would you say food, water, energy security is a big one?
Absolutely.
Huge?
Absolutely.
And land use also?
If if you have a way to get out of debt right now, that's going to be key. One of the things that I covered the other day is the social credit system being implemented here now, where my bank felt compelled to tell me I'd spent 32 cents more than I should on groceries this month. Highly disturbing. So they're tracking everything that we do. We need to eliminate this digital ID currency stuff. The only reason they need this is so that they can offer us the carrot when the housing bubble or the financial system collapses, which is getting closer and closer by the day. With the way our, more, we can't even give them the benefit of the doubt that any of this is ineptitude, shadow. This is a willful manufactured destruction of our countries, both America and Canada, the UK, and all of these guys. So all they want to do is to keep juggling the ball. As long as they think that they can continue to extract wealth out of us until we are completely non-compliant, and then pull the plug in. The ones that will be willing to submit will get looked after moving forward, and own nothing and be happy. So that's kind of you know
Oh, nothing
what
and
their
be happy.
plan is. But
You know what I
no,
find interesting down in the States? That all the Marxists are screaming on their left-wing corporate media about Project 2025, which sounds like, to me, a fantastic plan. But they never once mentioned the Great Reset when it was actually a book written by Klaus Schwab. Like, Project 2025, you mean to say that Trump wants to get rid of the rot in the executive branch? Yeah, yeah. He wants to get rid of all the captured bureaucracy and replace them with people who are, right down the middle like they're supposed to be. It's incredible. What do you think is going, like, quickly, what do you think is going on down there? Is Biden going to be the nominee, or are they going to pull somebody out from a hat?
how can anybody maintain straight face and expect to be taken as legitimate and credible, screaming to protect democracy whilst implementing policy from Geneva and Davos? Um, any
People
single
don't
one of
know it,
them.
though. They don't know it. I mean, I thought you were going to say, how can anybody expect to maintain credibility and focus and expect to win another 4 years in office when he pooped his pants in public in front of the entire world?
Yeah, that's a criminal, a crime all in unto itself, of elder abuse on
Yeah.
the world stage of the most despicable nature. This is literally a public spectacle of sacrifice, and that oblivious old man, he knows absolutely nothing. And he is so jacked on whatever they can get into him before a couple of seconds of time. So this is, again, these people at the highest levels, they have absolutely no moral compassion and compunction. Think about that family.
His
Uh,
wife, man. I mean, she rolls him out there like that. Like, oh, how could she
geez,
ever?
she's getting what she was promised for keeping her mouth shut, for becoming what she became, when the wife and the other one, all of these things, when you get to that level of corruption and evil, they still have honor amongst themselves. I think the only thing that's delaying this right now is they're negotiating pardons for Jill and Hunter and brother James out of this. So once they've negotiated their great escape, that sacrifice will be over. And right here in Canada right now, it's amazing that people start paying attention to the list of names of people of the inside of the Liberal cabinet of Canada. How many are sharpening their knives and talons as well?
Oh, it's not going to be any of them. It's going to be Mark Carney if they replace him with anybody. And never mind. Hey,
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter, but Carney is like the worst globalist of them all, man. He's awful. He's the worst.
And he is going to have less power when he comes in than what Jagmeet has ever had, because we're going to pick a globalist with spine instead. It'll show us really how to implement globalism. I tell you.
All right, buddy. How can we find you? You're on Rumble. What's Up Canada? 6 o'clock Central every weeknight, and
Yep.
also on Substack. Yeah.
Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Central. Mondays are from the roots. Tuesday is into the weeds in the swamp. Wednesdays are guest nights. Thursdays are clown world, and Friday is the finance whisperer that makes a living deciphering the conspiracies so that he can help people with their financial situations and investments and all those kinds of things. And then everything that I do shows up the next morning in a Substack. So the neat thing about this is I'm able to disseminate documents, PDFs, files, all the goodies, all the meat and potatoes of stuff. I'm not just talking about it. I am delivering it the next day so people can do their own actual research. They can actually go and, oh, well, they talked about this on the show. I don't know what link it was he was talking about. No, you can get it all the next day in the Substack.
All right, brother. Thank you very much for coming on tonight. It's been a pleasure having you back, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll think of something interesting that pokes the bear again real soon.
I think we could go on for another 2 hours if we had the time. Wayne Peters, everybody. What's Up Canada? We'll talk again soon, Wayne. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right. All right. That is it for the social media part of the show tonight, you guys. But we do have so much more to bring you in the extension on shadowdavis.com. So if you are not a member, go become one. It's actually pretty inexpensive. $10 a month. And you get all this extra content. And tonight, we have something interesting from Lion Advocacy. This is Viva Fry's brother, David Fryheit, who just posted this on his X account. It's official. Forced COVID-19 nasal swab PCR tests for incoming travelers under the Quarantine Act were unlawful. And we're going to look into that and more in the extension. We've got all kinds of stuff for you in the extension on shadowdavis.com in exactly 2 minutes' time. For those of you who will not be joining us there, I'll catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live stream. Until then, I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I will talk to you later, or I will talk to you very, very soon. Bye for now.